Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Iris Fox, and I want to extend a warm welcome to the Rough Edges podcast. Rough Edges exists to provide mental health education as well as faith-based messages in order to inspire growth and foster healing. In this podcast, I will guide you through my faith and mental health journey to dispel the stigma surrounding mental illness and to create a voice for those who wish to discover more about these topics. My hope is that this podcast will not only shed light on mental health issues, but will also reveal the intersection between faith and mental illness in order to bring growth and healing in our communities. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Rough Edges. I am so excited about our guest today. His name is Carlo Taormina. Carlo Taormina is from Richmond, Virginia, and he fell into a deep depression and even had suicidal ideation toward the end of 2020 and the majority of 2021. He turned his life around and is now a coach that helps others achieve the breakthrough he had for himself through his own experiences. So welcome, Carlo.
What's up? How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing good. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
Of course. And so I'm so excited because today, as you all know, we're in our season 4. So we're talking about mental health and the media. And today we are going to talk about the movie Castaway. And before we dive in, I wanted to set a precedent and say that we are talking about spoilers. So if you haven't seen Castaway, please pause this, watch the movie, come back, and listen to our discussion. Before we begin, Carlo, I want to get to know you a little bit better. So what are 3 things that you are most passionate about and why?
Yeah, so I would say I'm really, really passionate about, first off, just helping people. That's just been my thing ever since I was a kid, really. I always told myself when I was a kid that all I wanted to do was just help people. I never really understood in what capacity, though. So, for example, when I was a kid, I still kind of am. I love acting. I love making movies. So I was like, ooh, I can help people by making movies and stuff like that. But as I was kind of going along my life journey, and of course, we're going to dive into it a little bit deeper, but of course, I kind of fell into this mental health realm and kind of fell into the depression. And not knowing a way out, eventually, of course, I did. And now that kind of gave me a good direction to go to, or toward rather, and say, oh, now I know exactly how I can help people with this, with my experiences, and how I can help people with that. Another thing, I don't know, I gotta give it to my dogs. I don't know, especially, again, not to say specifically around this whole mental health genre, but it's they definitely help me. They're just right there over there chilling on the couch, and they definitely help me with everything. There are some so many days, in fact, every day where it's it was super hard to smile, but they're always there. They're always cuddling and playing. So I would really credit them, and I just love them so much. Another thing I find really important, something I love a lot. I hope I'm still in the realm of the question. I hope I'm not deviating too much from it. I'll definitely say family. Family relationships, my own girlfriend. Just having that tight knit community. Because I'm very fortunate to have that. I had a very great support system. They never gave up on me. They never quit on me. And they're very, very supportive in every single step of the way. And I'm just super grateful for them. So I would definitely probably put them on the list too.
Wow, I really, really love that. And I resonated to a lot of things that you said, especially with helping others and their mental health journeys. And I'm also a cat mom, so I know the feeling of just having your pets and they just really make your day so much better. And I also resonate with family, and I really, really love that you do have that support system because it's just so important to have, So
100%.
thank you for that.
Yeah, of course.
So, as I mentioned earlier, we are going to talk about Castaway. But before we do that, as a general question, in your opinion, does the media give an accurate portrayal of mental health? Why or why not?
I mean, I feel like in certain cases it does. Again, especially if we're speaking about media. And again, like we mentioned before, we're going to discuss a little bit further about the specific movie Castaway. But I think if we're just pinpointing this particular movie, I think it does show a pretty accurate depiction of what mental health can look like. Obviously, not literally like, okay, you're going to be stranded on an island, but like,
Right.
I think it does a good job of showing a couple things. One, just human resilience and perseverance. At times it's very difficult to do that, and in the movie, if you have watched it or if you have not watched it, go watch it, but you're going to see that in this character with Tom Hanks that he plays. And it can show you a lot of, I think it shows you a good vision of the entire spectrum of how bad it can get, of okay, I have no other option, let me, do something drastic, versus okay, I'm on the other side of the spectrum, I'm okay, and here's how I am right now. So
Right.
I would say for the most part, overall, I think the media does a pretty decent job. Of course, I would love to see some more things. As
Mm.
someone who has dealt with depression, suicidal ideation, I don't really think I've seen anything as far as film is concerned or TV shows that kind of depicts that. Of course, in music, it's a lot broader and there's a
Mhm.
lot more freedom to speak your own mind. In music, most definitely, I have seen a lot of, or rather listened to a lot of resonating lyrics in music in general that does depict what someone's mental health struggle may be going through. I just wish it would be a little bit more visual. I would love it to see in film.
Mhm. Yeah, I definitely agree with that, especially with like as you were saying with music, because I think with music a lot of the times the lyrics are like so meaningful and it's just very poetic in describing the experience that you just immerse yourself into it because it's like that resonated deeply with you, you know? And
Mhm.
so it's just the way it was written. And I do agree with you. Like I wish we had more visual representations, more accurate representations of like depression and even suicidal ideation. I know it's like a very, very heavy topic, but to just have an accurate portrayal and not have something that glorifies it or glamorizes it or, just shows it in like a light that's not really what happens. And so, yeah, I agree. We definitely need more of that.
100%. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, it's so I also love how you tied it to Castaway, and right now I'm going to read the plot summary for people that don't really know. I mean, I'm like, if you haven't seen Castaway,
Oh, so
it's
you're
just
under a rock. Like,
yeah, right. I'm like, I mean, I'll give it to you if you were born like maybe like right now, but like everybody has a general idea. But for those who don't know, here is the plot summary of Castaway. So, obsessively punctual FedEx executive Chuck Nolan, played by Tom Hanks, is en route to an assignment in Malaysia when his plane crashes over the Pacific Ocean during a storm. The sole survivor of the flight, Chuck washes ashore on a deserted island. When his efforts to sail away and contact help fail, Chuck learns how to survive on the island, where he remains for years, accompanied by only his handmade volleyball friend, Wilson. Will Chuck ever return to civilization and reunite with his loved ones? So, yeah, that's the basic premise, but we are going to just jump right into the discussion. So, again, spoilers will be discussed. But, Carlo, I would like to know what were your favorite moments from the film and how do you feel like they depicted mental health, in your opinion?
yeah, so I'll kind of go in order. So towards the end, but I'll save that juicy part for last, of course. So I'm a funny guy, so I like a little bit of comedy in there. So I do like the the one moment where he Chuck in the movie, he actually first like builds Wilson, but he's trying to
Mhm.
build this fire, and he's just like looking at him. He's like, okay, he's almost, I think, like internally kind of giving this ball an identity. And then he's like, okay, well, I got no one on this island to talk to. I kind of made this face on this volleyball. Let's do something. And as he's making a fire, he asks the volleyball if he has a match or not to make a fire. So I really think that was really funny. I just wanted to throw that out there. Another thing I would add is in the toward the end of the film where he's about to set sail, like back to, at least he's trying to get back to civilization, and he's like got the beard now. He's like super skinny. He's about to leave. And he's like, I don't know how much, but he's short of rope. He's building this boat, but he doesn't have enough rope. He's like, okay, what do I need to do? And he's like having this conversation with Wilson, but like obviously it's with himself. And the only place he can get it is up at the top of like this cliff, this mountain that inevitably you're going to find out or have found out that he was going to hang himself. He was going to commit suicide, and he built a rope. He built a noose, and he was going to do it. So eventually he gets the rope, he sets sail. But it was, to me, that was really powerful because as like before he gets the rope, he's having this conversation with Wilson, the volleyball. He's like, or I think afterwards, I forget, but he's like, listen, it was like the only option I had at the time. There's nothing else I could have done, but hey, obviously I'm still here now, so we're good. But I can totally resonate with what he was saying because internally, like consciously, it's as if we're on a stranded island. If you are dealing with depression, if you are feeling those feelings of suicidal ideation, you almost feel deserted. You almost feel like you're on this deserted island and there's no way out. There's no one coming to save you. So it's like, what else am I going to do? So I think the movie shows a great explanation of what it's like externally of what mental health is, but you can almost internalize it and be like, okay, that's what it meant. Or at least that's how I understood the film in that particular sequence. So he said I was out of options, but I still pushed forward. So that one was really powerful. And I think the most powerful lesson I learned from that film was toward the end. And this is after he's saved. This is after he's like clean shaven. He's got his hair cut and whatnot. And he's back at home. And he's having a conversation with his brother in front of the fireplace. And he's got a drink in his hand. And I remember this particular scene because I watched it, I paused, and I sent the clip to my brother because I was like, does this make sense? So what the scene is that he's sitting in front of this fire with a drink in his hand, and he's like, yeah, what I wanted to do is I wanted to inevitably end my life, but I couldn't even do that. Like nothing was in my control. I couldn't even do that. So he was pretty much stranded, not only on this island, but stranded with his own thoughts, and he kept going. So then when he realized that he did not have an option, like he didn't have the choice to even take his own life the way he wanted to, probably the only way he probably could have on that island, he was like, you know what? Okay, if I can't do that, let me just do this. Let me just live one day at a time, and that's all I have to do. Just live one day at a time. And then he said, eventually, the wind came and gave me a sail. And now I'm sitting here with you. I have ice in my glass. And when I heard that, I was like, wow. But at the time, I didn't know if that was true or not. Because at the time when I was watching it, I was still in my funk, right? I was still really depressed. I was still having those feelings of suicidal ideation. And I didn't know if it was right or wrong. Like, oh, is this just Hollywood fluff? Is it just saying, oh, just to give people hope and make them cry in the movie theater? Or is this actually legit? Can I actually apply this to my own life? And I sent that clip to my brother. And I asked, is this real? Like, is this what this means? I forgot what he said, if I'm being honest. But coming out of it now from the other side, being the real Carlo again, it makes so much freaking sense. Like, literally, he was right. Like, the screenwriters did a fantastic job. And that really, I think, is the ultimate message, is just take one day at a time, and eventually the wind will come and give you a sail.
Wow. I love that. I love everything about that because it's true. It's like all you can do is take it one day at a time. And it's just amazing to even think like the power of like just these depictions on screen and in film because it's like it touched your life in a way that was just like revolutionary for you, you know? And it's just like thinking about just like the power of the message behind like all you like even when life like hits you like very hard, all you have are the present moments that you are living. And it's just amazing how like most of the time we're thinking, okay, what am I going to do when I get over this? Or, like what's life going to be like on the other side? But even when you're in those dark moments, all you can really do is just take it one step at a time, like do the next right thing and just move forward. And I just love the way you explain how it just like had that, it gave you that click in your mind where it's like, I understand
Yeah.
this. Like it's just amazing. And I just love that, the movie resonated with you in that way. And it's just a literal testament as to like how powerful these portrayals can be for good or for bad.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I definitely, I'm so glad that like I had the chance to watch that movie too. Like, of course, I love that movie since I was a kid, but of course, it appreciates so much, especially when you're an adult, because you understand so much more. So definitely seeing that movie at the right time, I think it did help a lot.
Yeah, I just love it. I really do love like, how it makes sense cuz like certain things you watch as when you're a kid it's just like it
Mhm.
kind of flies over your head a little and you're just like, "Oh, that was a fun scene in a movie." But then when you go back and watch it as an adult and you're just like, "Oh, yeah, I understand."
Not only that though, that movie like it stands the test of time. And like we've all seen those movies or TV shows where we're just like, yeah, okay, that was good, but you'll probably never watch it again. But like that one,
Mhm.
I could literally watch every single day.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It was like I went back and watched it like, for like for our talk today and I was like, wow, this is like pretty deep stuff. And so I was like, wow, I thought because initially I was like, oh yeah, it's like a guy that gets stranded on an island and it's like, they're gonna wrap it up in a nice little bow like Hollywood always does. But like you mentioned, that gut punch at the end where it's just like through all of the things that he went through on that island, that moment towards the end is like the really profound moment, as you
Mhm.
explained, because it's like he's just reflecting. It's just like I was powerless at one point, and now it's like my life just changed. Like I'm here sitting with my brother, like in front of a
Mhm.
fireplace, like all like just okay and everything, but it's just taking those like moments, like one day at a time. So I really
And
love
if I could add one more moment, I just like thought because I'm like watching the movie again in my head as we're speaking. There towards the end, of course, we see he's like delivering that last package. He's got like he has like another Wilson in his car with all this water, and then
that.
he's driving, and then he's at this crossroads. Right, there's like four different directions he could go. Then one lady stops and asks, "Oh, you lost? You looking for directions?" He's like, "Oh, I forgot what he says. Like, oh, I'm trying to look for so and so, or maybe I forgot what he said." They didn't say anything. I totally forget that part. But like at the end of the movie, there's just no dialogue. You just see him, and he's looking like left, right, where like looking where to go.
Yeah.
And to me, how I understood that is like we all have a choice on where we want to go. We could go this way, we can go left, right, backwards, whatever we want. But it's like at the end of the day, we have a choice on what we want to do with our lives. And I thought that was
Right.
a great like send off for the movie.
Yes, honestly, I also like that moment. I think he didn't really say anything because he was just looking at her at the time, like, yeah, I do need some help. But but yeah, I do agree with that. It's just like you do have a lot of choices and a lot of the times, especially when dealing with like mental health conditions, you feel like your options are limited and you feel like you don't really have a way out, as you were
Mm-hmm.
mentioning before. Like it feels like you're stranded and you have no options. And just seeing him like being even aware that he has like choices now, like he has more things available to him, it just like opened up a world where he could just like really acclimate back into society, because that's another thing about like towards the end, it's like he's just getting back into civilization and it's like, whoa, like like what's going on here, and it's just like that for me also opened up like a new world through his eyes, and just like taking that healing journey can often be like that. It's like it opens up so many other doors and choices that we have. So yeah, I agree with you on that. Yeah, so thank you so much for like, sharing those moments because
Yeah.
you actually like just like made me go on like a train of thought. Like I'm like, yes, I remember that moment. But I also wanted to ask you, which moments of the film, I mean, you touched on this a little bit, but are there any additional moments in the film where you looked at it and you were like, huh, that's definitely something that I've experienced and it's really accurate to like what mental health is all about?
I would definitely go back to the points I made earlier about the specific moments toward the end of the film where he was speaking about like, okay, I had no choice, but then eventually, if I went day by day, eventually the wind gave me a sail. But another thing, I would if I were to add, if I were to add something on top of that, it would I'll go back to the beginning of the film, and I know all of us do this actually, is like we get so caught up in what we think is not only the present moment, but what we anticipate for the future. We take ourselves so seriously to that point, and we don't like take a second just to stop and like look at the clouds. Like, oh, it's really nice out today. Like we don't do that.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And it's just like if we could just put our cell phones down and just actually look at the world around you and just actually think about who you are and like what you could do for others, because a lot of the times it's like we're just so caught up in our own little bubbles that we just don't like go out of that bubble to
Yes.
actually go the extra mile for someone else. So I really appreciate that. So I also want to talk a little bit about, you mentioned earlier about how the movie really just kind of elevates resilience. And I just want to know like how has the movie in a sense like mirrored your own life in terms of like being resilient even with mental health, because as I read in your bio earlier, you went through like some serious depression, to the
Mhm.
point of like suicidal ideation. And so how do you think the movie kind of mirrored like your resilience and moving forward?
Yeah. So I was the type of guy who said like, you know what? I've tried. I can't go on anymore. There's no point. So I was the person who said it was impossible to ever get better. And there was this one day where I'll try to condense this story. It's a little lengthy, so I'll try to condense it as much as I can. But I remember my brother was talking to me, and again, I have the best supportive family ever, support system. And there's this one day where I was sitting in the car with my brother, and he was like, "Hey, I'm your brother. I would do anything for you. Would you do anything for me?" I was like, "Sure." He's like, "Okay, I just want you to do me a favor. I want you to go on a trip." I was like, "Dude, what? I don't want to go on a trip. It's hard enough for me to leave my bed, let alone my bedroom. You want me to go on a trip?" But fast forward a little bit, I kind of let the idea sink in, and I was like, you know what? Let me just try one more time. Let me just be open minded to this experience, and let me try. And then, of course, as the story unfolded, that's where I kind of found my breakthrough. That's where I was like, oh my God, like, I'm so glad I said yes to this opportunity, because if I didn't, God knows where I'd be. So I would say the resilience, if you just give yourself the chance and the opportunity, because you owe it to yourself, because no one deserves to be in that depressive state. Nobody deserves to have or deal with that. We all deserve an extraordinary life. So if you allow yourself to be open minded and just say, you know what, let me just try one more day, stuff will happen. Great things will happen. Light bulbs will go off. And I'm living proof of that. If anyone's listening to this and they feel like they've kind of hit that wall of, okay, it's impossible to break through, trust me, it's not impossible. Like, you can definitely do it. And this isn't just being motivational, inspirational. Like, the dude who said that it was impossible to overcome depression and suicidal ideation is talking to you now saying that, yes, you can do it. So I think it's pretty real.
Wow. I really love that. And the thing is, it's like, it's not to sound cliche, but It's like you've really inspired me, even just like sitting here and listening to your story, because a lot of the times, I mean, I've had moments myself where I felt like, you know, it can't get any worse than this. Like, there's no way out of this. Like, this is all there is. And now I'm not saying that I'm completely on the other side, but I would say like I am better than I was like before. And I'm sure you could say the same thing,
Oh
that
yes, of
looking
course.
back, yeah, like looking back like years like before, it was like, you know, you're looking back at that person that you were and you're just like, wow, look how far I've come. And I just love the hope. I just love like the hope with your story, because it's just like it is possible. You know, it's like it's not just like the end all be all of your story. Like it is possible to have hope and to move forward. And I am grateful that you're sitting here like sharing your story. No,
Well, thank
really, because
you.
like it's awesome.
I will say, I'm not gonna lie, it does feel good, you know. So I hope you hear that, people. It's possible.
Yes, it definitely is. And I also want to just like ask you if you have any like main takeaways from the film or lessons that you learned about how mental health is depicted in media from the film itself.
For me, again, I'm a very simple person, so I would just go back to that same point I mentioned before. When you watch that entire film, you see what this guy goes through, and then you're at the end of the film, and he's talking to his brother in front of the fireplace, and he said, "Literally, the reason why I'm here, talking to you, having this ice in my glass, sitting in front of a fire, is because I took it one day at a time. That is all I did, and then eventually, boom, the wind came, gave me a sail, and now I'm here." So if there's anything to take away, anything that I really feel, anything I feel that helps with mental health in regards to media, that particular scene blows everything else out of the water.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I feel like there are some moments when media gets it right, and then there are other moments when media gets it totally wrong. But
Mm.
that moment that you described, like, I remember, like, just being like in awe of that, because it's just like, wow, it's that simple. Like, I feel like
Yes.
yeah, I feel like we just overcomplicate things all the time. And it's just like, no, it's literally just one moment at a time. Like, that's all we have, you know? And so, yes, thank you. I really like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Absolutely.
So, my final question for you, Carlo, would be what advice or words of encouragement do you have for those who are struggling with mental health issues?
One thing I would say is, coming from my own experience, of course, is I remember having my family tell me X, Y, and Z, what to do, what not to do, how to think. I even spoke to a therapist at a point in time. And what they were saying, I wouldn't say is wrong, but I was just in a bad state. You know, I wasn't in a state to accept it, this information. So, the way I like to explain it to people is, imagine like you, I don't know, what's a good way to explain this? Imagine like you're in math class, right? And your teacher is telling you, okay, we're going to have a pop quiz today, but get this, I have a cheat sheet for you. So you can see the answers, but you are raving about this one thing that made you mad. Maybe one of your high school sweethearts broke up with you. Maybe, I don't know, you got embarrassed in gym class, whatever the case may be, but you're so consumed with this one moment where you can't really see what's in front of your face.
Mm.
Hey, I have this cheat sheet for you. Here are the answers. You're not in a proper state to learn these lessons. So, one thing I would tell people to encourage them to actually help them kind of be in that proper state to accept these lessons given to them by either their family, friends, or mental health professionals, coaches, psychiatrists, therapists, psychologists, etc., is you need to be in a proper state first to accept this information. So, how do you get into this proper state? How I learned, it's called getting into a peak state. And all that means is that you should change your physiology. You should change the way you move your body. Because scientifically proven is that when you move your body more, you're actually hacking your biochemistry, in which result you actually boost your serotonin levels. You actually build more serotonin, which is the mood boosting hormone. So obviously, the more serotonin you have, the less symptoms of depression, anxiety, worry, fear you're going to have. So how I do it, and I do this every morning. It's part of my morning routine. I get up. I don't look at my phone, like my emails, Instagram, anything like that. I don't. But I'll use my phone. I'll pick a song that I really, really like that gets me going, and I'll just dance to the song. It may sound stupid or silly, but legit, this like little nugget legit saved my life. So I dance to a song and I jam out, and it puts me in a state. Now, if you don't want to dance, it's cool. Jump up and down for a minute or two. Or even if you just smile and you put your hands on your hips and you stand like Wonder Woman or Superman for 2 minutes, it sounds stupid and silly, but it literally changes your physiology and it changes your state. And the reason why I emphasize this so much, not only in this particular question you asked me, but in the content I create and the people I coach, is I remember specifically the first time I did it. This is when I was really depressed. I did it and I was like, you know what? I don't really feel that depressed, but nothing changed. Like nothing external changed. Like my situation didn't happen. A miracle didn't happen. Like nothing really changed. But what did change is my physiology. And I just changed the state I was in. So I know this is a very lengthy explanation. Sorry, I just tend to ramble. But if there's one thing I would talk to or speak to people about in regards to their mental health and how they can improve their own state, is the first thing you need to do is change the way you move your body. Jump up, dance, do whatever you need to do for a couple minutes, and do it radically. Don't just do some sidestepping stuff. Like don't do a couple of bounces here and there. No, like legit dance, jump like a crazy person if you have to. Just do it. I promise you, you will feel different.
Wow, I like that. I'm gonna try that. I really I'm definitely trying that tomorrow morning.
It works. I'm telling you, it's a miracle. It literally is.
Wow. All right. Well, thank you so much, Carlo, for joining me.
Thank
And
you for
Carlo,
having me.
where can they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. You guys can find me on Instagram at Carlo Taormina _life coach, and same name on TikTok.
All right. Awesome. Well, guys, stay tuned for more empowering episodes on Rough Edges. Thank you for listening to Rough Edges. This podcast is available on Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and more. For more updates on the Rough Edges podcast, please follow on Instagram at rough.edges.podcast. You can also visit the official podcast website at www.roughedgespodcast.com. If you have any questions or further suggestions for how this podcast can grow, please email at rough.edges.podcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening and have a wonderful day.